Okay, so we are making some grass inside of Max to throw into Unity. I've already built everything. What I want to do is just quickly discuss what I've done. First thing I did was build a grid just using a planar object and giving it some segments. If you right click and you go to object properties, you can turn off the renderability of it, and I'm just using it as a visual. And then I made my grass stems. Right now they're a single object, but all they are just some planar objects that I just put a map on, stretched them and bent them and twisted them on a 2D level. Real quick, just to show you what I did. Let's go here to the front view here. Shift F will take the film gate. I'm going to render frame off. I built a plane, made it skinny, and I gave it some polygons. I gave it one segment down the middle because it doesn't need a whole lot more. And then I just shaped it using the editable poly. And it's not very complex. I wasn't really trying to do much more with this than just to get a basic render setup. I think I even added let's go to parametric. I think I added a taper to this a little bit. I don't know why. Something like that. And then it's just collapse it. And I'm going to scale it down a little bit. And then I just made a couple copies. At this point, I just made a couple copies, and I added the NURB, which is basically like a turbo smooth. Turn the isolate off. You can see it just basically cracks up the details in there. I added a bend, and I went on the X, Y, and let's change instead, because whenever you add a gizmo, whenever you add a modifier, it goes to the actual pivot point of the object. So let's change that to be the base of the grass. And you'll see that you don't need a lot of bend to get a lot out of it. Just scale it down a little bit more. So I did that a couple copies, and then I attached it. The material I put on there is just a simple gradient. It's a gradient ramp, in fact. Real simple to make. It's a basic map with the new rendering, everything going to Arnold. It's not going to be the same thing probably, so I'm not sure what it will be. Let's take a look. Eventually, I'll find something similar to this because we all have lerps and gradients and things of that nature. So the gradient ramp versus the gradient. Just a quick go over. The gradient is the old legacy. It only has 3 sections, and you can't do much more past that. The gradient ramp turned it 90 degrees and gave you sliders. And so all I did on this one was I just got my 3 colors from green edge, yellow border, interior, and I even make that white a little later down the line. And I added just a hint of noise, and pretty big. Just adds a little shake in there. Just go mount. That's kind of the noise. That just looks like a noise map with the color scheme involved. And then I just applied it to the planar object using just planar maps projection. From there, I just made a couple copies. At this point, get back to, so unhide all this, get back to the grid concept. Camera, cancel. Camera, get back to this, Shift F to get the film gate, and I can hit F9. And this is what my goal is after. The reason why I made a grid, let's go ahead and, the reason why I made a grid is so that I know that I can cut out each fronds of grass independently. I do not need to make it a 4x4. I can make it a 6x12 or 2x5 or whatever, just as long as it fits inside of the texture, and every one of my items will fit inside as well. I'm going to be building wild grass and things that you'd see in Central Texas, which is where I'm native towards, and I'm going to build towards that look and feel. And so I'll have tall pieces and short pieces. Some things will be tall weeds, which will be a long segment like that'll fit all right here, and I'll have small leaves that go on this side. So it's just like a trim sheet in an architectural way. I'm using the same basic techniques. From there, what I did was I just went ahead and fashioned simple planar objects that match the actual grass shapes. And then at that point, I just formed them into a kind of a funnel pattern with the normals facing up because we want it below our camera level, so we're going to be looking down on it. But we can, I think we can render it two-sided, I'm not sure. It's a terrain object in Unity. From there, with each one of these, I added a simple bend, and that means that I can build a couple variations if I wanted to. For grass, I'm not too worried about it, but down the line, it'll be more important. Now we're getting into the final stage. This is the actual piece of grass that I built. That's actually holding on to a simple map with transparency of the actual grass render I made, using it as a transparency. There's other ways to do it. Transparent PNG will work as well. It'll be a different shader creation in Unity anyway, but I'm using a PNG with transparency in Unity, a target in here. I just convert them in Photoshop. Now, what we need to do here is something different. I want to see how sharp we are. This is the trick. What I've got going on here is the Vertex Paint. When I put it into Unity, the object was swaying real badly. It was literally moving probably about 2 or 3 meters of game space, and all the vertices were shaking like crazy. And that's just native with the actual grass modifier. Not modifier, but the grass setup inside of Unity. And what I need to do is tell the geometry how much influence that wave or that wind action, and I'll show you this in a little bit, how much that wind action can affect my geometry. By doing this, I can actually set my geometry to not wave at all or to wave just a little bit. And what we're going to use is a Vertex Painting modifier. So I'm going to make a, I'm going to take this grass that I built over here. Is it this one? Not that one. Let's unisolate real quick. Let's take this one. And this is the finished piece, and I'll show you what I'm going to do first. I'm going to go ahead and make a copy of this, and I'm going to attach. Let's go ahead and isolate that real quick. So I'm going to grab one. I'm not too worried about which one. I'm going to collapse it to an editable poly, and then right click again. I'm going to hit attach. And I'm applying these 4 pieces of geometry. Now they're very small. This is great. The Unity default is a sprite, and I'm not too big of a fan of that. I want to see a 3-dimensional object, to be real honest with you. Now, okay, so I just learned something real quick. The reason why I'm not seeing my painting is because I don't have it on display. So if I go here, I'll disable texture there. So everything, let's go ahead and repaint everything white. So we go paint. So now painting the whole thing is all the vertices are being painted white. Let's make sure I have, deactivate that, and I'm gonna select everything. Hit Control A if you need to. And make sure you select all the vertices, and let's paint everything white first, which means basically it will be completely 100% affected by the wind action in the Unity engine. And now what I want to do is limit the amount of base movement, which means completely black. I want 0 movement. So if you worked in the soft selection of 3ds Max, or if you worked in any skinning in 3ds Max, they use a full color spectrum to define how much influence the object, warp or bone or whatever the driver is having effect on the vertices. And this is using a black and white method or a grayscale method, much like that you'd see in Unity. All that being said, and Max's grayscale value ramp being so bad, it's kind of hard to make sure you have everything exactly how you want it. So just kind of work at it and take your time and do some discovery. Now if I leave it white, that means that these vertices are going to slide all the way over. So I'm going to actually try to get this down to like something more like a slider effect. And if I overpaint, I'll just go back and touch it up. Maybe even have it just a little bit lighter up top. I haven't put this much gradation into this small of an object and into Unity yet, so I'm not sure what's going to happen. But what I'll do is I'll make a couple copies so you can see variations. Alright, so there's that. I'm going to go ahead and say that that's the Vertex painted object. I'm not sure how successful that will be, but I'm going to go ahead and just hit collapse 2, and then I can just slide this over. Now, right now it's just completely in Vertex painted mode. And so actually, if I undo all of the, let's go ahead and turn that back on. Sweet. Now I'm going to collapse you. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to export this out, and I'm going to take this into Unity. So let's go ahead and call this Grass 02 because I already got one in there. I'm going to hit copy. And then I'm going to export selected. I've got it, I think, in here. There's grass 1, grass 2. So actually, we're going to do grass 3 then. And I believe grass 1 may be broken, but it may be untouched with Vertex Painting. But what I'm going to do is go ahead and I'm going to create a new one and make it grass 4. So what I'm going to do here is just use this one. And I won't save this one, but let's go here and let's go find that Vertex Paint again. Just to cover the whole thing over again. So I'm going to turn off the map, and that's on Vertex Shading. Go into the Vertex, hit Control A to select all my vertices, and then I'm going to leave it paint white. But let's just say that I want to change it to white, where I'll have full effect of whatever the warp or modifier that I'm trying to do. Go paint and paint everything on there. If I go here and paint it black, where it'll have 0 effect. Let's go ahead and make it something weird and obvious. So we should see some funky interaction with that one. Actually, I'm just going to undo that and just make it all white so that when we go into Unity, you'll see the difference between the two different effects. Change that, close that, collapse that, and let's export this one as 4. Export selected. This will be 4. Hit OK. I'm also tempted to just make it a little bigger so it's a little more obvious. Let's do that. Let's take this one piece. I'm just going to scale it up. And place it right there. I don't care if it sticks in the ground, but that's just, I mean, it should look pretty cool in terms of looking like a tall piece of grass or something. Give it some kind of variation. And I'm going to reset the transforms just to make sure. Collapse it to a normal poly. And make sure you always collapse it before you export it. Export selected. That's going to be grass 4. Yes. Okay. The next video I'm going to pick up, we're going to take those 2 pieces of grass into Unity and we will look at the differences. All right. Be right back.